My name's Jeff Chesnut, and on behalf of me and my sister, Christy Levine, we want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us in this interesting time that we're going through. For remembrance, we've created a video that has some words from people that loved Leslie, and so I'm going to play that, and when I play that, I'm going to mute everybody. That'll go for a little over 20 minutes. And once that is done, then everyone can unmute their microphones if they would like to share stories about Leslie or just continue chatting. So with that, I'm going to mute everyone, and then we're going to roll the video.
Welcome to this memorial service, a service for Leslie Chesnut. We're grateful that you're with us today. We meet here in the presence of death to do homage to the spirit of life. We would make this time love's time, and these simple rites love's confessional. For it is love's tribute that we come to offer here today. We are here to celebrate the life of Leslie Naylene Wood Chesnut. It is the time you all shared with Leslie that has called us together today. We are not here to eulogize Leslie. Instead, we are here, as Leslie would have wished, to meet quietly for a time, to celebrate her life and to acknowledge what we knew to be good in her. The life that was lost need not be absent from our world as long as we are willing to embody it. The good that was started and the risks that proved fruitful are far from over, so long as we are willing to continue the tradition. The mistakes that were made, whether of omission or commission, do not define those who depart us, so long as our hearts are bigger than our understanding. In the midst of the dark night of the soul, the joy of a new day will once again break through on this earth of beauty and hope, in this world of our own making. Let us now pray this prayer, first spoken by Rabindranath Tagore. Peace, my heart. Let the time of parting be sweet. Let it not be a death, but completeness. Let love melt into memory and pain into song. Let the flight through the sky end in the folding of wings over the nest. Let the last touch of your hands be gentle, gentle like the flowers of the night. Stand still, O beautiful end, for a moment, and say your last words in silence. I bow to you and hold up my lamp to light you on your way. Benediction. Let this hour ever be for us a reminder. In the presence of death comes again life, life in its infinite continuity, and love in its enduring significance, and mixing with memory leaves us with the sacred. Leslie, you have become for us now intertwined, one with life and love, and we are reminded, even in loss and grief, of life's greater meaning. May peace be in our hearts, and may the spirit of life abide now and always. Blessed be.
Okay, everybody hang tight. I'm going to check something with the audio.
Hi, this is Laura. My sister Leslie was a beautiful soul. She was full of peace in all that she did, and she never liked to make waves. She practiced this all her life. She formed her own opinions and could not be swayed by others. She had a great sense of humor, and she loved to laugh. We were 7 years apart, and Kathy and she were 14 years apart. When she would call me on the phone, she would always start the call by saying, "This is your big sis." Mostly, I have very fond memories. One is us coming home from school while living in Oklahoma City, famished, and throwing open the refrigerator door to see what we could find to eat. Inevitably, we would pull out the mayonnaise and pickle jars and make us a sandwich with white bread. We laughed about those sandwiches later in life. In her high school years, when we lived in Atlanta, I remember her beginning to date, playing on a girls' football team called Powder Puff Football, and us dancing to records playing in her room. It was in her late teens when she was called upon to babysit Kathy and I, while Mom and Dad took a trip that they had won to the Bahamas. We were living in Atlanta at that time. What a weekend that was. First, Kathy got sick with a fever. I recall Leslie being on the phone, calling various people to find out what to do to bring the fever down. Next thing I knew, she was running a very cold tub of water and as she got ready to place Kathy in the water, I started screaming, "What are you doing? You're going to hurt her." But Leslie was very calm and told me it was going to be okay. And it was. Kathy's fever came back to normal. I'm sure no one was more glad than she was when our parents finally arrived home. Leslie and I shared a bedroom in our Grandma Smith's home in Enid, Oklahoma, leading up to the time she was getting married. I had borrowed my grandmother's record player and had saved my money to buy a single record for Leslie. The day of her wedding, she woke up so excited. And I went over to the record player and put on the record, "Going to the chapel and we're gonna get married," by the Dixie Cups. We danced around the room that morning. Leslie was a great mother, a good seamstress, and cook. For many years, she often made our Christmas gifts. I still use placemats that she sewed and a Christmas wreath that she handmade. She loved to bake and used to bring pumpkin bread and hot spiced tea with her when she would visit us at Christmas in Dallas. It was in Leslie's late 50s that life threw her a nasty curveball. First with thyroid cancer, and then later with a very hard to diagnose mood disorder. She suffered for several years before some relief was found through proper medications and diagnosis. Scripture found in 1 Thessalonians 5, verses 18 calls on us, "In everything give thanks." Had there not been a need for more care for Leslie and access to different medical specialties, Leslie's birth family would not have had 10 precious years with her in Dallas. For me, this is where I give thanks, for it was a blessing for Kathy and I to have those close years with her, a blessing that she got that extra time with Mom, and a blessing that she got to see her 2 nieces grow up, and a blessing that we found the right doctor who was able to give her many years of stabilization. Throughout those 10 years, there were some long periods of contentment and purpose. Around 2007, she took on our mom as her project, driving Miss Natalie to and from numerous medical appointments. For the next 5 years, they were a twosome, spending countless hours together, reading the Sunday newspaper, eating lunch together almost daily, driving to the girls' schools to see their plays or activities, or participating in an activity at our mom's home. It was helpful to both of them to be together, and it gave them a lot of joy and solace. And it was very helpful to me that they could help each other out. Throughout all these past 17 years, I learned and came to admire more qualities about Leslie. 1, she was tremendously adaptable. She never complained about her circumstances. She understood limitations and readily became flexible. I think she must have learned this early in life because, you see, she was born during the war when Daddy was serving in the Army. She had no bassinet or crib. Instead, Mom and Dad made a bed for her in a drawer out of the chest of drawers for her to sleep in. 2, she practiced gratitude with her family in big and small ways. When we 3 sisters would go in together for flowers or a special gift or event, she always found a way to slip me a few dollars to cover her share, though it was never expected. So it should be as no surprise to anyone that she tried her best to do her best, always. And last, she was a natural-born comforter. One day I had a traffic accident, one that I caused, and in my shock and dismay, I went directly to her apartment and sobbed in her arms. She was so gentle and so kind, speaking soothing words to me as I began to gather my wits. She was, plain and simple, my big sis. Leslie, I love you, and I will miss you forever.
525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear. How do you measure a year? The words to this song, Seasons of Love, from the musical Rent, capture the question before me today. How do I measure what it was like to be a friend to Leslie Chesnut? Only as more than the 525,600 minutes that comprise 1 year, it was almost 50 years. And how do I ever measure the impact of her life on mine and on others through all those minutes, those moments, those years? We met in the early 1970s when we were volunteers with the Mother to Mother program that Kurt was directing. We were two middle-class church women who set out to build a relationship with mothers who were receiving welfare. We were naive, privileged, and knew so little of their reality. I'm convinced that if the women we worked with learned even half as much as we did, that program was successful. The lessons we learned about poverty and inequality are still with me. And in the relationship that Les and I started to build with one another during that time, I first experienced the spirit, the core of Leslie Chesnut. Her commitment to a task, to the details, to the reflection on the work done, and hopes for the future of everyone involved. Her ingrained sense of compassion and social justice, and her sense of humor. Our next venture together was working to start Bethany Community School, a huge undertaking. And as her longtime friend and fellow worker, Ruth Ann Fate, commented, Les was always there. Through our years together at the school, Leslie served in every capacity except director, always bringing her wisdom, her quiet support, her creativity, work ethic, and sense of humor. It was at Bethany that I started calling her my Leslie, sort of jokingly, following the lead of her nephew, Mark Davenport, who she faithfully brought to Bethany School when he was a very young child. He called her my Leslie. She wanted him to experience the spirit that was so pervasive at Bethany Community School, that life was good. These were the 70s, and in addition to her work at Bethany, Leslie became a leader in the peace movement, making trips to New York, spending time in Chicago at the Ecumenical Institute, picketing nuclear sites, and publishing and distributing a newspaper for Tulsa Peace Fellowship. For many of us, Les was Tulsa Peace Fellowship. Bill Major, a close friend and co-worker, said that because of her, the arc of the universe moved more closely to justice. Leslie personified peaceful activism for me and helped to keep me accountable. Every thoughtful card or gift from her carried a dove or a peace symbol and came from some fair trade organization that made life better for those in need, usually for women and children. She brought peace and a deep spirituality to my life as well. In her later years, when being out in the community became difficult for her, she worked to build community within Grace Living Center, where she lived. Carol Sollers, who spent time with Les during those years, describes her as a strong woman with a gentle approach and a remarkable low-key wit. Les wanted to keep her commitment to peace and human rights issues. She stayed abreast of politics and world affairs. During the last election for Oklahoma House of Representatives, she actively campaigned within Grace Living Center for Andy Richardson, son of one of our former teachers. She actually made cold calls on people in their rooms, and she got out the votes for Andy. At the end of one of my last visits with her, instead of our usual goodbye hug, she took me by the shoulders and got right in my face. She looked in my eyes and said, "Peace be with you, Myrna." I held her in the same way and said, "Peace be with you, my Leslie." She left us as she lived with us, in peace. She consistently did the best she could, where she was, with what she had. How do you measure a life? A lifelong friendship with peace and love and gratitude. Peace be with you.
As many of you know, the last 20 years were not kind to my mother. She suffered from bipolar disorder, severe anxiety, and eventually dementia. This was hard for her and hard for her family. But now, Leslie Naylene Chesnut has passed on. She is no longer in a place where we can interact with her, and our only interactions of her now are with her memories. I remember a mother who was always there for me, whether it was cleaning me up after some playtime accident, helping me with homework when things weren't clicking at school, only taking jobs that allowed her to be home when my sister and I got off the bus, cooking for the whole family every day after she'd had a full day at work, listening to us complain about the food, and then cooking again the next day. I remember her riding in the car bare-knuckled after I got my learner's permit. But I also remember a mother who was there for others, spending countless hours making baby books for new mothers, becoming one of the founders of Tulsa Peace Fellowship, setting up new programs for her kids at Bethany, recently reading for the kids when she was at Grace. But the memory of her that had the biggest effect on me was the conversation that we had when she told me I would be going to Burroughs Elementary for first grade, and that Burroughs was a magnet school and half the students there would be black. I immediately started crying, and she said, "Jeff, why are you crying?" "Because I'm scared." "Well, why are you scared?" "I don't know." "Are you scared because some of the children will have a different color skin than you?" "Yeah." "Well, Jeff, do you and I look the same?" "No." "Do you and your sister look the same?" "No." "Do you and your friend across the street look the same?" "No." "Well, Jeff, that's because you are special, and only you can be you. And each and every kid at your school is going to look different from you, and they are going to be special too, because only they can be them. Doesn't matter what color hair they have, what kind of clothes they have, what color their skin is. They are the only ones can be them, and that makes each and every one of them special." And I remember this conversation because it changed the way I treated life. It made me realize that each and every one of us are all the same. It made me realize that my assumptions could be wrong. And for that memory and that lesson, I am always thankful for my mother. And so with that, I wonder what memories each of you have of Leslie that will help keep her presence alive. And so with that, if I can figure out, I am going to, if anybody wants to share a story, go ahead and unmute your microphone. That's on the lower left, it says mute. And if you want people to be able to see you, the camera down there says, start or stop video. Anyone? No one?
Of course, I'm going to talk. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, a great memory I have of Leslie, Jeff, was really shortly after you were born. And Leslie offered to teach me how to sew. And I came up to live with you all for a little while and help take care of you at your house. And she taught me how to sew a dress, and we cooked and we did a variety of things. And I always knew that she was just a great homemaker. And for some reason, Mom just hadn't really had a chance to really teach me how to sew. And so Leslie did, and I made a dress and I wore it quite a bit. And it was I just remember a great summer with her. I don't know how long I was there. It seemed like I was there several weeks, but we really enjoyed spending that time together at that time. And then later, another great memory I have of Leslie is just her offering to come and watch the girls while Marty and I went on an anniversary trip. And so, of course, the girls were kind of sad, I think, at that time. And the first time she came, I'm trying to remember how old Mallory was, but for some reason, Leslie was trying to get her into the car, and she wouldn't go. And she just would stand there on the porch. She goes, "Come on, let's go." And she wouldn't go. And so finally, she just had to pick her up and stick her in the car. And then later we kind of figured out it was probably all the listening to Barney going, "Never talk to strangers, don't get in their car." And she just hadn't been around Leslie enough to really know. But Leslie was so special. She brought up stamps. I don't know if you guys remember the stamps that she had. And she brought up shaving cream for the girls to play with on their high chair and make all sorts of things and all sorts of crafts and activities. And she just had the best time, looking forward to spending time with her nieces. And of course, she and I just had some very special moments during the time she was living here in Dallas. Times she spent with Mom, and then times that, I got to be with her and kind of with her and during some health issues. But she always called me her little sis, and was always just very punctual with birthday cards and thank you notes and so many thoughtful little things that she did. And I always knew she was there for me to listen and to talk with. So miss her very much. And it's just great to see all the wonderful pictures that you've put together and all these wonderful videos, and just to learn more about Leslie's life, apart from us and everything she did, because I was so much younger. And so thank you for doing this. And I know she's with Mom, and she loved Mom so very much, and I know that they're together. And so thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be hosting this whole session up on her webpage when it's all done. If anybody missed it and you know of them and they'd like to watch it again. Anybody else? No. Okay.
Jeff, this is Kathy.
Hi.
I just wanted to say how gracious she was when my dad always called her 5'3". He had a name for everybody, and Leslie was 5'3". And the reason was he told her when she was pregnant, I believe with you, that she was 5'3" by 5'3", and never called her anything else but that after that. And she always just laughed, and we called her 5'3", and she was wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, if no one else has anything, then maybe you're...
So Jeff, it's Bill Major.
Bill.
I lived with the family in the summer of '75, and then behind your house for 3 years in the mid '70s. It was a real important time in my life, and went through many changes during that time. Leslie was both a friend and kind of a surrogate mom in those times, and I can remember the many years of nurturing for Leslie, and then the incredible work that she did with Tulsa Peace Fellowship. Myrna couldn't have said it better. But remember your mom and Leslie very fondly, and really throughout her whole life, it's made a difference in my life, and I appreciate you doing this today. Thanks.
Yeah, I remember the Tulsa Peace Fellowship, all the meetings, and it was a small group, but you guys were movers and shakers, and that kind of shaped my viewpoint. Hanging out with you guys shaped my viewpoint for the rest of my life. Anyone else? Oh, Laura, I see you're talking. You're gonna have to unmute your mic. Oh, let's see if I can find it. Okay, there you go. I unmuted you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you to you and Christy for putting this together. I know this was a big project, and like everything else in life right now, we're in uncharted waters, but y'all both have done a really tremendous job in being able to us finally being able to have this memorial service for Leslie, and I appreciate all the work that you've done. So thank you.
Yeah, that's good. Thank everybody for coming. Once again, we will be posting this up on the on Mom's site, and as well as some of the other videos. With that, I hope everybody stay safe out there. And thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, everybody.